Thanks a lot, Quarter Guy. The Shantae series is developed by WayForward and apparently has been on Nintendo consoles ever since the Game Boy Color era. And when I found this out, I was like, wow, really? Shantae's been around for that long? Because I first heard about Shantae with Risky's Revenge, which was a DSiWare game. And that I heard from Quarter Guy from one of his videos, and he mentioned Shantae, and at first I was like kind of apprehensive about getting the game because I thought it looked good. It was a simple platformer, it was an indie game. I just wasn't expecting it to be on a Nintendo platform, mind you, but for some reason, like, the hype about Shantae kind of slipped under the radar for me for some reason. It wasn't until recently, about maybe 2 months ago, when I was looking for more games to play and, try to expand my library, and I remember that Quarter Guy kept on mentioning Shantae, or rather, I kept remembering that he mentioned Shantae, and I also talked with him about it, and he said it was really good. So I eventually decided, okay, you know what? It was $5 on the eShop, I'm going to give it a shot. And not only was I surprised by what I was playing, I generally, and more so, I absolutely enjoyed myself. Shantae is a really, really cool game. The first game was for the Game Boy Advance, not Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, and it was one game that I honestly thought was really, really impressive for the Game Boy era. There's so much in that game that I didn't think could fit in the Game Boy Color, because we're comparing this to games like Super Mario Land and all that jazz that didn't really have a lot to it in the grand scheme of things. But Shantae, the first Shantae, had a lot going on for it. There were abilities, transformations, different dungeons, different items and power-ups, mini-games, all of it was there. Even hub worlds and, like, different towns, and the amount of content in the first Shantae really impressed me. What didn't impress me was the fact that it was one of those Nintendo hard platformers. There's some general problems with the first Shantae that I can't really ruminate on here, mainly because of time constraints, if you guys know what I mean. But yeah, like, the main things about the first Shantae that kind of bugged me were the infinitely respawning enemies, as well as the frequency of their respawning. Not to mention those damn bottomless pits and insta-death spikes. Seriously, come on! That being said, it did impress me enough to the point where I got Risky's Revenge soon after. And Risky's Revenge is sort of a bittersweet one for me, mainly because I thought there was a lot more to the first Shantae than there was in this game. I mean, the mechanics were certainly improved, and the magic meter is actually a really nice touch. Other than that, though, the second Shantae didn't really impress me as much as the first one. Maybe it was lacking some substance, or like the game just wasn't as large. I mean, I know it was a DSiWare game, but that being said, the DSiWare Risky's Revenge on the eShop is $10, and I feel like I kind of got skimped out of my money for Risky's Revenge because there was a lot more to do in the first Shantae, and that was $5. Still, it was an alright game. I mean, it wasn't the grand game that I was expecting, like, compared to the first Shantae game, but I'm still glad I played it. I enjoyed it relatively. And then comes Shantae and the Pirate's Curse. That is the game that made me a Shantae fan. This game in particular I actually really want to talk about because there is so much to this game that just impressed me. The characterization was there. All of the characters in Shantae are really entertaining. My favorites, besides Shantae of course, are being Roddy Tops and Bolo. Then there's the gameplay mechanics, which were vastly improved. I mean, as much as I like the transformations from the first two Shantae games, the pirate weapons in this one really improved the gameplay and it sped up the pace. And that's on top of the improvements that they made through the overall game, such as making the camera a little bit further away from Shantae, which allowed us to look for things that were coming at us. In addition to pretty much the entire level design in general. And I also, speaking of which, I also really like the fact that you travel to different islands in this game. It kind of like, it allowed for more creative level design, and overall it kind of just expanded the world of Sequin Land, and I really appreciated that as well. Overall, Shantae just really impressed me, and maybe the first game impressed me, the second one was okay, but then the third game just made me a Shantae fan overall. And on that note, I'm on the ban for Shantae being in Smash Brothers, so Nintendo, make it happen.